wanted to talk today about the waste and the issues that happen with rework. Now, yesterday we talked about the control phase and how when you're making metal rods at a certain measurement, how to control that process and why control is so important. But let's talk about the part that was the rework. The rework is anything that you have to do that was supposed to be done in a process before. So in this case, what you wanted was the machine to extrude a metal rod that was 12 inches long. But because you couldn't do that accurately, you had to do a rework, which meant the next person, you had somebody else measuring and cutting to length to meet customer specification. Which is all, that's fine. It's fine, you can do that, but just remember that's waste. And rework is always waste. It's a waste of materials, time, manpower, movement, all of the above, plus, okay? But let's determine something more important, which is control of the process. If rework is part of your process, then it needs to be under control. And that means that it is documented, that you understand what's involved, the tools involved, and who's responsible for it. What happens a lot of times, though, is that if, let's say that you have a person in the line doing the rework on the rod, and they have a form they're using, and the form is easy for them. They put the rod in. There's a spot that measures it, and they make the mark every single time. It's the same. They don't have to pull out a yardstick and check to see what the length is. It's already set up. They just put it in there and they cut it. What happens a lot of times is something will change and somebody will move out of the process. So in this case, for example, you have somebody new on the line and they're using the jig, but they're slow, or they have never used a saw before, or they're just not with it, right? They're behind. And what often happens is the supervisor, the team leader, whoever it is, will then start pulling rods off to the side in order to help speed up the process, to make the numbers that they need to make, and they'll find a table or a box and a yardstick, and they'll just start marking it and cutting it themselves by hand. And then your process is gone. It's out of control. Because you can't control that. You can't control if it's being done correctly. You don't know if the parts are being cut correctly, if they're being put in the bin after or before they've been cut. There's just so many things that you miss, right? And that's because it's not part of a flow. We have what's called a one-piece flow. And the one-piece flow means that the part from beginning to end goes through consecutive stations. It never stops. It just keeps going through one station after another, and it's only touched by one hand. Or it's through a flow that might have different swim lanes. So you could have multiple rework stations, but they're always in control. You know where the part is going, you know what's being done, you know who's handling it, you know how long it takes, you know what measurement it's supposed to have, and you can always check for the quality standards. It's a standardized process. But if you pull something out of that process do it somewhere else, and you don't create a documented process for it, then it's out of control, and you don't know what you're getting, and that's when you have quality problems, right? Another thing that people don't think about is sometimes you can use the DMAIC process to improve efficiency in a cell. So if you wanted to go in and look at a process and find its wastes, maybe it's been set up that way for a long, long time. Maybe you had two people reworking, for instance, to cut this piece to length. But you've got a guy that's been there for, I don't know, maybe a year or two, and he's been cutting this rod to length every day. He's there every single day. And he's really good at his job. So you go to do a efficiency to make process to find out if you have waste in your process. And what happens is this guy's doing so well, you're like, man, I only need this guy. I don't need the second guy. I don't need that part of the flow. I can save money by getting rid of that person, right? Yeah, you can do that. The problem is that you also have to be ready to put that process back into place in control at a moment's notice. People forget about it. They get rid of it and they forget about it until something happens. The guy retires, the guy gets fired, the guy gets sick. Something in the process changes, like when the rod comes out, it's got additional damage to it, say burrs on it that now have to be cleaned off. But because you don't have a process for that, or that the person that you have measure, you have them clean that up without a process as well, right? And maybe you haven't even identified the issue is out of spec, which it is, and the person forgets to do it every once in a while, and then you write them up for it, or you would just expect them to find these issues and clean them up, but you don't give them the time to do that because it's not controlled. Well, then you got a problem. So what you really want to do is be prepared. And that's what the FEMA is for. If you have an issue, the FEMA is not just for, it is the process. It's for the process. And you should be looking for any issue you might have down the line. Just in case something is out of specification, you've got to fix it and send it on to the next station. Or where it's got to be reworked. Or how to identify it. Or when you're going to fix it. Right? Maybe you can't shut your machine down right now to fix it because you're behind or you're just even with your production. So you can't get in there and fix the machine. And so you have somebody doing the rework. People don't understand what rework is. It's not a value-added process. It's not part of the value-added stream. It is part of the process that you created because you can't make a product right the first time in one station. So it has to be reworked. In this case, the machine is supposed to cut to length, but it's not. It's not cutting to length. So you have to have somebody else cut it to length. That's rework. That's double handling. That's a waste of material, manpower, time, movement, all of the above. So you have to remember that you have to be ready for any issue. You may get a pat on the back for getting rid of a person until later on down the line when you start having problems because something's wrong with the machine but you can't stop, and then you want to start blaming people for your process being out of spec or sending bad quality to the customer when it's your own fault that you didn't prepare for this and then you didn't add the other line back into place or know how you were going to do that or identify and determine when you were going to send the tooling out to get it fixed. So when you think about it, think about what value stream means. The value stream is anything that adds value to a product, any process that does that. So in this case, the machine should have cut the part to length. Then it goes on to the next station, which should be packing it. Right? That's all it should be doing. But in this case, you couldn't get it to length, so you sent it to another area to be reworked for length, or maybe to clean it up because it's got burrs or something like that. That's rework, and that is not part of the value-added process. No matter what anybody says, it is not part of your value-added process. It does bring your part back into specification. It's how you keep from sending something bad to the customer. But the customer doesn't pay for that. You do. So you have to put that into your equation financially. So remember, rework, not value stream, not value added, but if it's necessary, it needs to be under control. All right, well, have a great day. This is Lost Bull. And hey, have an efficient day. Thanks. Bye.